This is Abnormal Entertainment.
Welcome to Bedlam, says the sign on the door that leads to her kitchen, where there's always room for one more. The beef stew is cooking, so pull up a seat, 'cause it's Grandma's house, where everyone meets.
Hey everybody, this is Daniel and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start by thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to come check us out at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. You can find just about anything you like on there. Go check it out. Also inviting everybody to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. My handle at Little Mexican, LILMESICAN. Check it out. There's all kinds of really neat stuff. You can also check littlemexicanproductions.com, which is under construction, but you'll find everything that our production company is doing and working on. And if you like, just go to Facebook and find Put It Together Podcast or Little Mexican Productions, and you can find us there. I want to start quickly because I'm excited to have a guest today. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you, and thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. We finally got to see each other's face. We've been emailing back and forth for quite a while.
Yes, exactly.
Now you're up in NorCal?
I'm actually in the Ventura County area.
Oh, okay. So you're not that far from me. You're in Laguna Beach.
Not too far.
Oh, okay, cool.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, I found Michelle. Actually, we were connected together by Drew. I had originally approached Drew because I was very intrigued about him traveling in this Winnebago through the country. And then he said, I have a bigger story for you. And I said, bigger than a Winnebago? Wait a minute. And then we connected and tell a little bit, it's about the book.
Correct. Yes. So Drew basically had wonderful things to say about you. And since I'm helping out with the publicity of the book, since I have a PR background, I decided to reach out to you because your podcast, Put It Together, just seems perfect for the authors of our book, Positive Minded People. It seemed like a really good connection, really good synergy. And so here we are through several emails and going back and forth. Here we are today.
Awesome. I like it. I like that my people. I like that my people.
Yes. They're all your people. They're there for you.
And my ego just grew about 3 sizes.
That's okay. That's all good.
It's a really huge compliment, and I have to acknowledge that I've made a great effort to make this show about people feeling comfortable to come and share their stories, and I'm glad that all the folks that are part of this book have all agreed to come on the show. So that's pretty unique. That's awesome. I was pretty thrilled.
Well, everyone's super excited. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. I need to just say that.
I was excited that everybody wanted their own hour. I was about to give everybody 20 minutes. I'm like, no. So it just goes to prove that authors are all divas. That just goes.
Yes, that's right. Well, and also the unique part about all of the authors in this book is that all of us are pretty outgoing, which you don't usually find extrovert personalities as authors. It's typically more introverts. But all of us from this book, we're all talkers, as I like to say.
That's awesome. Well, let's start talking about you. So tell us, Michelle, how do you put it together?
Well, I put it together by starting with being authentic. I, from a young age, have really focused on writing. I began writing probably around the age of 10 years old. And from there, I just really came into my own voice. And that, for me, as a writer, being creative is about self-expression through words. And I've always found that my expression of what's going on internally through emotions, through ups and downs of life, as all of us have had, that I really put it together by bringing those words together and allowing my words to really resonate not only with myself, but then hopefully others who read what I write.
Now, I read in your bio that you started writing pretty young. You were about
Correct.
10 years old when you started?
Yes, I was. I've always had really inspirational teachers, and from a very young age, English was always my favorite subject. And I always was encouraged. I can recall in elementary school, we had different book fairs where you would put together your own little book. They would bind it up together, and then they would have an awards show. And so I always won accolades for my writing at a very young age. And it was always one of those, I think everyone has that skill set that they feel extremely confident about. So not only from my mentors, my English teachers, to my parents always encouraged me. They always said, "You're such a great writer. You should keep doing it." So it was something that I always felt, as something that was confident, and something that I enjoyed doing that just came very effortlessly to me.
What was your favorite thing to write when you were a kid?
That's a great question. I used to write, it's funny, the first thing that comes to my mind was I used to write stories about, I've always been a huge cat lover, and I used to write stories, a lot of little stories about my cat that I had growing up. So I would write that. I would write, kind of stories about friendships as well. A lot of the relationships in my life, I think, were just something that I would talk about. My grandmother, I've always been super close with her before she passed away several years ago. And so I would just more so write conversations about family, friends, things that interested me.
So a lot of reality-based stuff, not a lot of fiction stuff per se.
Not as much fiction, correct. I think I wrote more on the nonfiction side. I wrote more about how I viewed the world through my own eyes, through my own writing. And so yeah, not as much, nothing on the sci-fi side, nothing on the fiction side per se.
Can you remember what 10-year-old Michelle, how she saw the world at that age?
Wow, that's a really good question. How did I see the world at 10? I think I was very hopeful and I was a very excitable kid. I was very passionate at such a young age. And I know that I was just very driven. I can always recall that, I was a very much an overachiever in school, always wanted to get straight A's. I was just, always around my friends and always happy-go-lucky. So I think I was just, kind of a very interested child in the world and the world around me.
Which is interesting because you do PR work, and
correct,
and that's taking interest in the world. You have to be on top of things and inquisitive, right?
Yes, that's a good connection, actually. I never connected those dots that it went back as young as it did. I think you're right. We all really form our personalities, of course, at such a young age, but that's very true. To be in PR, you really have to be a people person. You have to really know people and know what makes them tick and be a good communicator and a good writer.
There you go. So, you're still writing now, other than this book. You're still a writer. You still do other stuff.
Correct. I have a couple other books that I'm working on that are just in the works currently. Actually, one of which is actually a fiction book, interesting enough, that I've worked on for I'd say about 18 years now. And so that's a book that's finished. I've been shopping that around because I wanted to I really want to get it out there. It's pretty interesting. It's called Soul Connection. Still about the relationships we have, but told through more of a fictional character's perspective of it all. And so other than that, I do a lot of writing for my clients, press release writing. I write website content, marketing materials. So I do a lot on the PR and marketing side for clients that I have as well.
So, first off, I hear a cat.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine.
She needs to join in the conversation. I still have a cat, yes.
She probably heard out there. She was like, wait, you wrote about cats when you were a kid? What about my book? What about my story?
That's right. She's waiting for her debut to come out.
Yeah. Little did you know, but I speak cat, so I understood what you said. And
oh, you do? You're the cat whisperer.
Yeah,
okay.
She wants her own stories now, so we'll have to work on that.
She's hoping to start her own podcast, actually.
Now I forgot where I was going to go with my next question. Well, first of all, I hope when your book, as soon as your book gets bought and launched, and you'll come on the show and talk about it. So
oh my gosh, I would. That would be an honor. I would love to. That's my next project, to get that going. So
to get a little more insight into you write all these things for other people. You have contact for people, and I worked with some PR people for a while when I was younger, so I have a little insight. So if you were writing your own press release or your own note for yourself, you're your own client, what would you say about you?
Well, what I would talk about, I think what makes me unique is that I also have a background in psychology. So my undergrad is in communications and English, and then my graduate degree is in psychology. So if I were writing a press release about myself, I would talk a lot about understanding human behavior and how people tick the way that they do. So I think I would go more introspective into myself. And, I started out actually as a magazine editor, was one of my first jobs out of college. And from there, I transitioned to the whole .com world. And then that kind of led me into psychology. But the whole reason I went into psychology was I actually had a concussion.
Oh.
And a number of years ago. And I was so fascinated because the doctors weren't able to figure why I wasn't getting any better. It took about 6 months. I was out of work, and my cognitive skills just weren't what they were prior. Apparently, it's a very common thing called post-concussion syndrome, where if you think about it, it's really affecting, it's a jolt to your brain. So when you have a concussion, it really can affect a lot of the fine motor skills, and can affect really left and right brain. And that was really a pivotal turning point for me in life, where I became a lot more, into self-help and self-development. Whereas before, even though I was a very analytical person, I don't think I was as introspective. So I would more so analyze situations, but not as much going within. And that really catapulted me into a whole, series of years of self-development and exploration and really understanding, what is my place in this world and how can I benefit the world in general.
That's really interesting. I mean, Lord knows I banged my head several times, but, if we can talk about that for a little bit,
Sure.
What happened? What were the changes?
So, basically I was in a place where for example, just doing something simple like washing the dishes, it would take me 5 minutes to wash a dish. It was just that something that as small as that, doing a skill set like that. Cognitively, I had trouble recalling and processing information. So if you were to ask me a question, I wouldn't be as articulate, say, as I am today. It would take me quite a while. I would pause and I would have to think about what you were asking. When I was going from doctor to doctor, because they were doing, a lot of work, neurologists, I saw neurologists, general practitioners, they would ask me about my history. And although I had the long-term memory still, the short-term memory had been affected. So, for
Wow.
example, I didn't really recall the 6-month time frame. To this day, even I only recall bits and pieces from friends who've pieced it together. That time it's almost like I was frozen in this state of, kind of like being in a different world in a way.
Wow.
And I became really fascinated. I've studied a lot since about concussions, and you hear a lot, of course, I'm a huge football fan, so you hear a lot about this with pro athletes, concussions, hockey players, football players, and oftentimes that's their career, so they have to get back, right? They have to get back out into the field and play again. And the long-term effects of it, however, multiple concussions is extremely serious. And so I think that we're just starting to really see how it can lead into other things like PTSD, depression, anxiety, things along those lines from a psychosomatic standpoint.
Wow. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty intense. And I don't think there's a lot, really a lot of attention paid to it as much as it should be for, considering in 2017, there's so much that we know about how things work, but we still don't know that much about the brain. We don't know as much as we should know, I don't think.
I find it pretty fascinating now. My listeners know most of my story, but in 2015, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Wow.
And in 16, I had to go, there were some complications and I was bleeding out, almost died, had to go to the emergency room. And there are parts of that day, we were in the emergency room for 9 hours before I got a room.
Wow.
There are times during that day that I don't remember, or they're just kind of like, somebody clipped and pasted my time frames. And it's just, I think I remember the full 9 hours. My boyfriend Christian goes, no, you don't remember this part and you don't remember this part. But it's where my brain kind of shut down while they had to revive me.
Wow.
But I don't remember that. So it's interesting, I think, how the brain, I guess, goes into like a sleep mode.
Correct.
To help the rest of their body readjust to whatever's going on and then boots back up again. Does that make sense?
It completely makes sense. And in fact, you're 100% accurate. One of the doctors, I recall, he was a neurologist, and he actually did describe it like that. He said that your brain is actually shutting down to protect you because it has such an incredible capacity to almost regenerate itself that it needs that time. If you think about it, like if you break an arm, you need to put it in a cast to recover. Well, we don't have that ability with the brain. We can't put it in a cast, but what happens is it almost goes into a shutdown or sleep mode. And because of that, you're not functioning at your fullest capacity. And I correlate a lot of that to, if you think about someone who, for example, someone who's come off the front lines from war and has PTSD, that's a huge, issue amongst our troops. PTSD is essentially is they were so traumatized seeing everything that they had seen on the front lines that their brain is just saying, whoa, that's too much. It's too intense. I need to shut down.
That's, and now the PTSD part, for those of you listening who have never heard, I didn't know this term. Well, I knew about PTSD, but I didn't know there was different varieties of PTSD. I suffer from PTSD due to health issues because my body has been through so much trauma in my lifetime that certain times my body just shuts down. It's like, okay, we need to recoup. That's it for the day, or that's it for a couple of days. I didn't know that. I thought I was just going crazy and being lazy. But it's actually my brain telling my body, time out. We need to recoup now. And, if I push myself, my brain goes into overload and I'll forget, like I'll be talking to Christian, my boyfriend, it's late at night and I'll be talking and I'll be like, he's like, what? I'm like, I don't know what I know what I want to say. I just can't find the word. and I'll have issues. And then he's like, it's time to get you to rest. I'm like, yeah. We know the science now. That is so cool.
Exactly. No, you're so spot on with that, because there are so many different varieties. I mean, there's PTSD from people, let's say, if someone's been raped or someone has been molested as a child or someone's going through a divorce or a death. I think that we relate more the death part of it. We realize we don't label it per se as PTSD, but any type of big life move or decision. I think the biggest would be death, a divorce, pregnancy for women, or the birth of a child. That's a huge turning point in life, or the death of a child, whether through miscarriage, stillborn, or the child dies at an early age or even later in life. And then, of course, going through different phases of life, quarter life crisis at 25, or you hear people going through midlife crisis, job change, and moving. Those are some of the key areas in which we experience these new chapters in life. But with a lot of it comes a sense of angst or fear, and all of that's normal. And I think that we're starting to more so, when we take a look at people who are more self-evolved or introspective, who are focused a lot more on self-help, they're starting to see more of how we really are as really deep souls, and how our soul's ability versus our ego's mindset are completely different. And so I think it's pretty fascinating when you take a look at there's the soul part of you, that's really that knowing part, that intuitive part. And then, of course, there's the ego part that says, you can't do this, you can't accomplish this. It's really that sort of the devil and the angel on the shoulder.
That's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. Before we move on from this topic, was there any manifestations in your moods, in your mood during that time frame?
Well, the interesting part is I almost had what I would call a regression, where I almost became a lot more, I would say, like I was 27 at the time, but I almost became a younger version of myself. And part of that, again, is the brain goes into that self-protective mode. So I really kind of shut down. So that part of me, who was a successful editor at that time, I didn't have that capacity. It was almost as though I had regressed 10 years and I was still in high school, and I was just a high school student. Like it's as if I didn't recall that I had this capability of being an editor.
Oh, wow.
It was really fascinating. But what I also would say, as I mentioned, I then became very fascinated. So I went back to graduate school and studied psychology. And what I learned through studying psychology was about the brain and how it manifests different things such as depression and anxiety. Because at that point, I don't think the doctors put two and two together. They didn't send me to a therapist, which I think they probably should have in hindsight, because the biggest thing besides PTSD from a concussion is depression, is anxiety. And looking back, I definitely would say that was the onset of my experiencing that. And kind of just to piggyback upon that, there's a huge part of the industry when we're dealing with, say, psychotropic drugs, which would be any type of antidepressant or anti-anxiety. We still don't know what makes the brain tick, as I mentioned before. So the issue with that is that if you're depressed, you may have to go through 6, 7, 8 different types of antidepressants, and then sometimes none of those will work. Now, at the time of the concussion, I didn't try any type of antidepressants. That wasn't something that the doctors had felt was a problem. But what it was I just had changed so much from that time. It really caused that concussion caused my brain to change, and it caused my personality to change, which is also apparently very common. Yeah, it's super interesting when you connect the dots and you figure it out.
It's, I guess, in a sci-fi kind of way. It's like you went into this pod and came out a totally different Michelle.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
I definitely feel the pre-concussion version of me and the post-concussion are different versions.
Really? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. We can go on forever on this topic.
Oh, yes. Well, that may be a whole different book. That might be another, now that I'm talking to you about it, I'm thinking, geez, I should really write about that, because I think there's probably an interest in people hearing more about it.
Yeah. Because, although my personality has stayed pretty much the same pre and post cancer, there are definitely sides of me that have changed. The post Daniel is a little more fearful than the pre Daniel.
Okay.
I'm more cautious
Yeah,
in
I
things
could
that
see
I
that.
do.
Yeah.
And I'm not as emotional now that I was before. Before, I could watch a Hallmark commercial and be like, oh, that's so beautiful, and the dad and the daughter. Now I sit there and I'm like, please cry. Like my body is asking me to do it. And my brain's like, no, like that's not sad enough for us anymore. Like, we've been through cancer.
Wow.
We almost, you know what I mean? Like, and
right. Yeah. When you've gone through something as intense as fighting cancer, I'm sure that is, like you said, I mean, it's like, okay, the Hallmark commercial seems so trivial in perspective.
Right. It's pretty interesting, huh? But we could definitely do a whole show just on the brain and psychology. So you'll have to come back on the show. And since you're so close, we have to meet up. We have to meet up.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. Let's do that for sure.
All right, cool. So let's move on a little bit more, because we want to talk about the book too, and how your chapter comes to the book. So positive-minded people.
Yes.
How do you come to be part of this book?
So a number of years ago, probably about 8 to 10 years ago, I found this group online called Positive Minded People. And I thought, wow, that's completely that resonates with me. And it was, at that time, it was just a group. They kind of went back and forth about different, positive quotes and things along those lines. It then led to this meetup group where they started doing hikes, and they started doing different things, philanthropic things to give back to the community, such as feeding the homeless on Skid Row, raising funds. And the person who started the group, Benny Mayberry, who will be on your show, he is amazing. And ironically, he and I never met in person. I have always corresponded with him online for that amount of time, for seriously it was probably 8 to 10 years. And what happened was, when he decided that this idea for the book, the concept of it, he put out an email and said, anyone who's interested, tell a little bit about your story, and the publisher will get in touch, and we're going to pick so many people who would like to participate and be part of this book. And I thought, wow, that sounds amazing. And the timing was perfect. And that's how it all came together. And we actually finally met in person probably a month ago.
During the photo shoot?
Correct. Yes. So we have been corresponding for probably about the past 6 months, all of the authors, through doing Zoom and Skype and things along those lines. So you feel as though you know everyone. And so when we all met, we met first for a night of inspiration in Santa Monica. We did this event where we each got up and spoke about our chapter, and Benny spoke about how he founded Positive Minded People. And then from there, we had a whole bunch of our friends and family who came out, and we just got up and spoke. We had a beautiful lady who sang some songs, and from there, the next day, we did our photo shoot. So it was just really a very positive, very positive weekend, and just an amazing experience. When you think about how things come together in life, I don't believe there are coincidences. I believe things are meant to be, and you're meant to meet the people that you've met. And I can wholeheartedly say that every single one of the authors in this book will be in my life for the rest of my life. They just all have inspired me, and they just all are very soulful, amazing people.
Cool. So correct me if I'm wrong. There was a message put out that there was this book going to be put together, and who wanted to contribute, correct?
Correct.
And then, so the little voice in your head says, ... What did it say to you?
So the little voice in my head said, oh my gosh, here's your opportunity to be part of a book and tell your story. and be in a published book, because although I've written a lot and I've been a published author in many magazines throughout the years and online platforms and blogs and things along those lines, I've never been in a published book other than when I was a little kid and I was in the author's fair, which doesn't, that's the little kid version. So, this is the adult version of me. So I thought, wow, here's your chance to be a published author. That was what I thought.
That I have to admit that it's pretty cool to see your name on a book cover.
Right? Yeah.
I had the opportunity to do the foreword for a friend's book, and when he gave me my copy, I was like, my name's on there at the bottom. I'm like, yes, I'm published. I tell him, I said, who knows what your book is about, but I'm on the book, so that's all that matters.
Right.
He's like, it's a really good book. It's a really good book. How did you decide, or what was your process to decide what to write about?
Well, at the time, ironically, which this kind of ties back in a way to what I spoke about the concussion. At the time, I was actually going through some health issues. Oh. And what sparked for me, I originally was going to write about the concussion. I had a few other ideas that I was going to write about. But what happened for me, so I'm the type of writer, and everyone's different. Some people put together an outline. Some people dedicate a certain amount of time and set a timer to write each day. With me, the words just come to me. And so I sit down and just write, and I just start typing out what I'm thinking, and then I'll go back and edit it. So what happened was there was a common theme that I saw as I was writing that was interwoven throughout the chapter as well as throughout my life, which now has become the title of the book, called Just Knowing. And so it was this theme in my life about others, perhaps, say from the medical community, going back to the concussion, to my current situation of having health issues, of not feeling believed, not being believed, and having to be my own advocate and believe in myself. And so that really felt to be, from an intuitive standpoint, what I wanted to get out there to the readers of this book was believe in yourself, even if someone else isn't believing in you, because only you know yourself the best.
I'm writing that one down. Believe in yourself. That's really interesting, because I do a 360. I'm trying to write this book for next year, and I'm doing a once a day note. It's called 365 Day Book, and every day I write something down, which I had fallen behind because I was sick for a little bit, and I'm catching up now. But anyway, today I wrote, if you think I can do it, I know I can do it.
Nice.
So
that's perfect. That completely ties in.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer that, you've got to have the mindset. And when you can't put yourself in that mindset, find somebody that believes you can do it and feed off of that energy, right, and just keep going. Who do you feed off of, or what do you feed off of when you think, oh, I can't get through this?
I talk to my parents a lot, actually. My parents live on the East Coast, so they're 3,000 miles away, but they have really been my biggest support system, especially this past year was one of those really turning point years in my life. It was a really, really tough year. And so I think we all go through those times. It can be a season, it can be a year, it could be a couple of years. And so the one piece of advice I would say, I completely agree with you, is find your support system. So I have parents who are always a phone call away. I have an amazing support group of friends from childhood through high school, college, and later in years in life. And for me, a lot of times I'll just need that. I know you spoke about this before. Some days I just need a down day where I just say to myself, hey, it's okay to just relax. It's okay to just veg out. And I think it's important to honor that and not come down on yourself about not being positive that day. It's just your brain's way of saying, hey, I need to decompress.
Right. And I'm sorry, I totally jumped conversations. We were talking about you in the book.
Yes, that's okay. Well, it all actually ties in very well, to tell you the truth, because it all ties into being positive. That's what the whole concept of the book is about, is how do you overcome adversity when you're going through challenges? And so for me, I speak about my relationship with my grandmother, who was an extremely important person in my life. I've always had a very close relationship with her, and how she and I always had this, extremely close relationship. And so even when I was going through tough times in life, she was that person who was there for me. She was that shoulder to cry on, so to speak.
Right.
And then I talk about, so I had gone through these health issues. About 2 years ago, I had a miscarriage, and it was very devastating for me, being that I'm older. And when you're over the age of 35, the rate of miscarriages is extremely high. But at the time, I was 41. So it was even more traumatic, because that it just felt like, wow, I'm never going to be a mom in a natural way. And the whole concept with that was really difficult for me. And what I realized was that there weren't a lot of people that I knew who had been in the same position. So I started writing about it. I've known a lot of women who have had miscarriages, but they've gone on to have a healthy baby, or they've had, say, I have friends that have had delivered stillborn, a baby, and went on to adopt. And what I found was that people around me, as much as they were trying to be supportive, didn't really have the words. So I would have girlfriends say to me things like, you can always adopt, or, you can, you could find someone to be a surrogate for you. So no one really ever said, wow, I'm just so sorry to hear that. I can't imagine how that feels. And trust me when I say, my friends are amazing people with good hearts. So it's not that it was just something that we as a society, I think, still don't have the words. Our medical community doesn't have the words to speak.
Right.
My GYN, what she basically said to me was, there is no heartbeat. And I say that in the chapter. I speak a lot about the actual experience and how it felt in that moment to feel like I was just one of many patients, and it was just so clinical. And in hindsight, it would have been so amazing to have said, listen, here's a support group you can go to, or here's a therapist that can talk to you. Something like that, where you're given the tools to say, and this is what you're going to experience in the next few months. You're going to go through grief as if you just buried a child. It's the same experience. Having a miscarriage is the same experience as going through death. And so you're going to go through the same cycle of grief and grieving, and, the whole bargaining and anger and depression. And then finally get to the point of acceptance. But throughout that time, you still waver back and forth through all the emotions. And plus the fact, as a woman, then you're dealing with the hormonal aspect of it as well. So for me, I really felt adamant about putting this in the book, because I really am hopeful that many women will read this, and either they or someone they know has gone through a miscarriage, and maybe it will provide some tools to help people in the future if they know someone or they've gone through this.
Yeah. Oddly enough, it feels like you're talking about my life. Every time you say something, I'm like,
wow.
Oh my God, I've been through that. Crazy enough, almost everybody out of this book that I've interviewed, there's been something in the conversation that I'm like, are you in my head right now? Like, what's going on?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really cool. This group of people have been the most interesting interviews, some of the most interesting interviews that I've had in a long time. So kudos to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love to hear that. Great.
And I say that too for the audience, because if I'm able to connect with you through your story, me being a gay man and you being a straight woman, it's like, I'm sure that a woman listening to this podcast right now is going to go, then I need to get the book and read her chapter. So we have a good friend of ours who we were invited to go to the sonogram of her baby, and once there was no beat. And
oh my gosh.
yeah.
And you were there in the room at the time.
Right. So we were invited to witness this moment and be part of it. So
wow.
there we are, the nurse, our friend Christian and I, and we're like, yeah, oh. And then, like you say, Christian and I are both very intuitive. We work spirit a lot and we work energy a lot. So we always seem to know what to say to people, but being so close.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that you say that people would normally say is like, oh, well, don't worry, or, you know.
Or you can try again, or it's,
yeah.
Yeah, you didn't do anything wrong. I mean, because it's just, you're right, it's just natural to say those things.
Or the ever popular is like, everything happens for a reason.
And there are no words. I mean, oh yeah, I hate that one. I definitely don't like that. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And I use that a lot with clients when I do readings for them. You know, everything happens for a reason. Let's see what's going on. But
yeah.
but they're paying me pretty much to say comforting things. But when it's your friend and you're so close,
sure,
you're like,
yeah.
What do I say? What would you, other than I'm sorry this happened, what did you need to hear at that moment?
Oh, I think for me, I think I needed to just hear the honesty from people saying, I don't know what to say. To me, that, like, just saying those words, I don't know what to say, from friends and family, you know, just giving me that space to grieve and to talk and cry. And then from the medical side, from the doctors, from the physician side, I think it would have been really helpful to have been given some resources, because I was Googling away and it took a long time for me to find any type of support groups or anything. At the time I was living up in Oregon. And so I was really in an isolated, a very small community. So it wasn't like being back in LA. I think had I been in LA, I would have had a lot more resources, and I was far away from my core group of friends at the time as well. So I think to me, I think I know more what I wouldn't want people to say than what I would want them to say. I think that's a great question, because I don't think there are any words that anyone could have said that would have comforted me. I just know what didn't comfort me. And what didn't comfort me, was when people said, you can try again. Everything happens for a reason. That was another big one. You can adopt. It wasn't meant to be. And what else? I had a couple people offer the surrogate thing, which I thought was pretty interesting. Just either to say, I can be a surrogate for you. That was pretty interesting, I thought. Or you can get a surrogate to carry your baby. And again, I no fault of anyone in my life. I think people, we don't have the information on miscarriages we don't have a lot of experiences. And the main reason is I didn't speak about it for a long time. A lot of, you know, even my distant, you know, my cousins and things like that, I didn't announce it on Facebook, for example. Hey, guess what? I just had a miscarriage. And so I think it's that, almost that shame of, it's one of those things that you don't really speak about. And at the time, not everyone knew that I was pregnant yet. So I was still early on. I was 11 weeks. So I was almost to 12 weeks, almost through the first trimester. So you typically wait until you get through the first trimester to announce it. You know, not everyone does, but that's kind of the typical thing. So not everyone knew. So then I'm dealing with people, you know, who are like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you were pregnant. And so you're dealing with the double thing, like, hey, so just wanted to let you know that yes, I was, and now I'm not. And so I think it's a tough pill for people to swallow.
And I say this jokingly, but it's like there's no Hallmark card for that. Like how, like You can't run
Oh,
to,
no, you're right.
yeah, you
No,
can't
there
run
isn't.
to the store.
Yeah, you're right. There's no car that's like, wow, congratulations on the baby that you didn't have, but you could try again, and
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, how do you put that into perspective? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a couple of those things have finally
Yeah.
put it in perspective for me to be like, you know what, I don't know what to say, but if you want to vent or get mad, I'm here to listen. Like that's
Yes, I actually think that's the perfect thing to do. I mean, if this ever happened to someone that I knew, I think that's exactly what I would say to them is, I mean, in my case, I can relate because I have been through it, and not everything in life we have to go through. When I was a therapist, I could empathize with people that went through things that I didn't go through, but there is some comfort in knowing that you can call someone and cry or vent or whatever you need to express. I think that's the biggest thing and I think from our medical community, the other biggest part is giving our physicians the tools that they need, whether it be extra courses in psychology so that they have the words, because they're really the first person that you come in contact with in this situation. And I think that they often don't have the words of what to say, so they go into their clinical brain, as I call it, instead of their humanistic brain.
exactly. Because from the cancer perspective, one of my least favorite things is people would come to the hospital or come to visit me at home and be like, how are you feeling? I'm like, well, I have cancer. I'm going through chemo and radiation. How do you think I'm feeling? Like
Right,
hello?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's so awkward. Yeah, it's so awkward because you feel awkward, the other person feels awkward, and sometimes I think in life we want to have words to speak, and sometimes there aren't words to speak. It's just a matter of being a presence in that person's life that you care about.
Yeah.
Just being there. And sometimes less is more. Don't say anything. Give the person a hug. I actually had a few friends who sent me cards who were just like, I'm so sorry. I'm here for you. And that was perfect. That, it teared me up and made me feel loved. And, there weren't a lot of words, and that's exactly what I needed at that time.
Yeah. It's like I would tell people, well, Christian here, there were 3 things that people were not allowed to say to me when they came to visit was, how are you feeling? Are you okay? And I'm sorry. Because I would tell them, you're sorry? Did you give me cancer?
Yes.
And they would be like, no. I'm
right,
like,
exactly. Why are you sorry?
Then what are you sorry about? And I would get very confrontational, and then it would be awkward because it's like, he's just not doing well. Of course I'm not doing well. I have cancer. And I would be like, ah! But all my friends, to this stage, one of my least favorite questions when people text or message like, how are you feeling? I'm like, about what? Like, what should I feel about? Like,
right? Yeah.
I'd rather ask, how's your day going?
Well, did you experience this where people would, yes, exactly. Did you experience where people would ask you after everything you've been through, why are you not, how come, are you better now? Are you feeling better now? Did that bother you too?
Yes. I'm like, I had complications and I have a colostomy and there's things that I still can't eat or do. But yeah, life is great. And like, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
But I'm so open in my podcast, and I talk about a lot of stuff in shows that I put in interviews that I think people know now. Like, don't ask me how I'm feeling. It's like, hey, how are things now?
Yes.
How's your day going?
Yes.
Or what are you up to these days? Like that's a positive take on things. I always felt like maybe it's just my association.
Exactly.
How are you feeling after they know you've been through something? You're making me go back to that point, and I'm trying to walk away from it. So,
that's right.
Does that make sense?
That's right. And completely makes sense. And that's the healthy approach is once you go through something, you experience it, you actively grieve, whatever it is, your former self, the way, your healthier self, and then you have to let it go and move on at a certain point. You can't, I always correlate it to the hamster on the treadmill. You can't keep being the hamster on the treadmill going round and round and round, and you're never getting anywhere. Things happen, and I think the biggest piece of advice I would give people is give yourself the permission and the kindness and the self-love to actively grieve whatever you're going through. And don't let anyone tell you, hey, it's been too long. Hey, it could take you 5 years. It doesn't matter how long it takes. We all process information at different phases and in different time frames. And there is no right or wrong way to grieve. And honor yourself is what I think is key. Honor where you're at and give yourself that permission to do what it takes to take care of you.
Excellent. Well, one thing I forgot to mention in our pre-interview is part of the tradition of the show is to send out some words of wisdom to the folks listening, and it could be on anything you want. So what are your words of wisdom for today?
So my words of wisdom for today would be kind to yourself, believe in yourself, and every day get up and allow yourself to focus on, could be one thing, could be two, could be three. Focus on 3 things that you're grateful for in that day. And some days you'll find maybe just one thing. You're grateful for a roof over your head. You're grateful for the food on your table. You're grateful for your parents or your friends or your partner. But I think by allowing yourself to draw the attention to what's going well in your life, you give the universe permission to provide more of those positive things. And for me, that's the takeaway, is focus more on the positive, and in turn, that's what more of what you'll receive.
Cool. So we're in the last 10 minutes of the episode. This went by quick.
Okay. Yes, it totally did.
Tell us more about the book, when it comes out, all the info.
Okay, perfect. So there are 9 authors in the book, which give you the opportunity to experience 9 different perspectives about every type of situation you can imagine in life, told from the perspective of these 9 amazing people. The book comes out the pre-order of the book will be October 9th. So it will be available on positivemindedpeople.com and then positivemindedpeoplebook.com. And if you would like to follow us on Instagram or Facebook, we will provide up-to-date information the closer we get. It's, again, Positive Minded People Book. My part of the book is a chapter called Just Knowing. And this chapter really focuses on, and it doesn't have to just focus on women's intuition, although I talk a lot about being intuitive. I think a lot of people connect that to, oh, it's just female intuition. No, men, you also have that intuition. You also have that gut feeling. And the way that I describe it is there are times in life, say, where you meet someone, could be an interaction at a coffee shop, and you feel, wow, I feel really connected to that person. Or you're standing in line at a grocery store and you feel triggered by someone that you just want to get away because his or her energy does not resonate. So those are all little tidbits of your gut feeling, your intuition telling you this situation does not resonate with your soul's path in life, and this situation does. Now, what we choose to do with that is a different story, because I think everyone can relate to feeling a intuitive sense or seeing what we call a red flag and telling yourself, no, that's not true. There's nothing wrong. Keep going. It's in your head, and not really actively honoring that part of ourselves that's trying to say, hey, listen to me. And the more we don't listen, the more we may experience, in psychological terms, which is known as psychosomatic. So what does that mean, psychosomatic? That means you may experience things such as migraines or stomach aches or anxiety in the pit of your stomach, or you'll notice your immune system is shot and you start getting more colds, or you're constantly feeling like you've been zapped of energy. You have fatigue, digestive problems. The list goes on and on. But what happens is we first have that high level of functioning where our gut feeling tells us something's wrong. We either choose to go with it, or we choose to ignore it. And the more that we ignore it, the more that our body, our brain, and then also every other part of our body starts to say, listen, 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 until you're in sort of that hypervigilant state of red alert. And that's when you start to shut down. So I think it's important to know how that really comes down to, again, the brain coming full circle, how your brain works and how your body corresponds so amazingly, well with your brain. It's pretty phenomenal.
Again, we just have to meet up and do another episode, because you're just blowing my head. I'm like, oh wow, I've totally thought about that. Yes.
Yes, we definitely. I would love to do another episode, and I would love for us we have to meet up in person and talk some more, because I think there is a lot of connection between what you're saying and what I'm saying. And even though we've experienced different things, we can relate to each other, right? We can relate to one another, from a real deep level. So I think that's pretty amazing.
Because I've been working my intuition and do readings for people and work the Reiki for a while now. But after cancer and after those near-death moments, my intuition and my abilities just grew. I guess I was more in touch with spirit, with the universe, that it just kind of like stretched out.
Yes, I believe it. Yeah.
And just, it's taken me a couple of years to really go, oh, I'm not connecting at 50%. I'm connecting like 75 now. And that's why I feel weird.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel different. And it's really interesting.
Yes, exactly. Well, and you'll notice that you probably, I mean, I notice this, I'm assuming you probably do too. You need more time to decompress and not be in environments where it's so saturated with all types of energy. That's what I find. I find I need that time to kind of, I call it more like it feels like an isolation, but it's not. To me, it feels like a time to go within and time for myself to just, some days I need it more than other days, or I need to take a portion of the day in the morning or in the evening where I just decompress, get off social media. That would be my biggest recommendation actually for people at night too, is step away from your TV, your computer, your iPad, get off of social media at least an hour before you go to sleep, because you're haywired then and your brain is, processing information so quickly that it can lead to insomnia. And I only know that from trial and error, because I found myself in such a state of not sleeping for so long, and I was trying to connect the dots of why. And I found by going on and reviewing things on social media and things like that, that I would start to obsess about all those things, and without even knowing it, my brain was just on overdrive. So that's another way of self-care as well.
All right. If you guys heard
yourself by that.
If you guys heard the doorbell, that's Benny joining us. We'll be going on with him in just a minute. I wonder if he can hear us. Oh, he disconnected. He probably couldn't hear us.
They're wondering why we're waving.
Yeah. But he'll be joining us in just a minute. Well, we're down to the last couple of minutes. I want to tap again into your PR persona and tell these folks why they need to get this book when it comes out.
So this is a book that will absolutely change your life. It is a punch of positivity that anyone can benefit from. It will essentially be the dose of positivity that you need to carry you through on your worst days and be the inspiration that you need on your best days.
Excellent. I love that. I'm going to have to use that. Well, folks, did I say your last name correct? Paquette?
It's Paquette, correct. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So we've been we've been talking to Michelle Paquette, co-author of Positive Minded People. At this point, you probably have heard some of the other interviews in the series. There's 9 total. So make sure that you listen to all 9 so you can get an idea of what the book's about. You can get a little more in-depth knowledge of the authors and see where they're coming from and their stories. Michelle, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Daniel, so much. It's been such a great honor and pleasure to be on here, and I look forward to meeting up with you in person soon.
Cool. I hope you enjoyed yourself, because I know I'm just blown away by our conversation. It's been so cool.
Same here, you know what? And it's put me in such a great mood now to go about the rest of my day as well, having this authentic conversation with you.
But don't
but
go
it's
away.
all about.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I said I think that's what it's all about, is having these deep, authentic conversations with people. It really rejuvenates your spirit. For me, at least, it does.
Well, that's one of the things, again, one of the things that I love about Put It Together is not because it's my show, but the show in itself is that although we're talking about people's products and what they're doing and their services, it's a more in-depth conversation. Let's really get to know you.
Definitely.
I want to know who Michelle Paquette is so that I can look for your stuff. And now I have a connection with you when I read the book.
Yes.
Versus
I love it.
Versus just talking about the book or paraphrasing your website or, reading something off of something that I can read on my own. Like, we can all do that. But
exactly.
But to sit down and now that we picked your brain and I'm like, my God, this chick is really smart. Like she's got it going on. Now I want to go and read your chapter. And as I'm following along, I'm like, I get where she's coming from. I understand her words. And, at least for me, that's how it's worked.
I love that. I think it's so important. It's not just picking up a book with a bunch of names of people you don't know. It's really getting into the mindset and getting a connection with those people. I love it. I think it's perfect.
So for everybody listening, we will have the information for the book when it comes out. I will make sure to stay in touch with all these guys, because if all of y'all in LA, I'm gonna have to come and find y'all, take a picture with you guys.
Yeah.
And then the series will be out. I'll have all of the information out there along with the episodes. They'll be coming out once every week. So you'll be having 9 full weeks of all these authors to look forward to. And I know I am too. Michelle, hold on. Don't hang up yet. Everybody out there, I want to thank y'all for listening. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I did. Thank you, Michelle Paquette, for being on the show. I want to thank our producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Please visit us at abnormalentertainment.com. Visit me at littlemexicanproductions.com or on Facebook, Put It Together Podcast. Check me out at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Little Mexican, where you can get all the information about me and things that I like, things that I don't like. If you want to be on the show, you can email me at any of those you can message me at any of those sites or email me at danielggarza@hotmail.com. Subject podcast, so I know where you're coming from. And I would love to have you on the show. For Michelle Paquette, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
The little old lady merely stood 4'3", but I'd say that she's a giant. If you ever asked me, she ruled with an iron hand, so gentle and kind. Her strength was of 10 men. That comes to my mind. And you've given what as years seem to do. Grandma sits in a chair now for walk-ins, so hard to do. And if I had one wish to make, that one wish would be for my son to know the lady and learn the things that she taught me, and to guide him with her gentle hands and call him in from the cold, and wrap her loving arms around him and make him do what he's told, and to give him more than he'll ever know, to teach him how to work and to reap what he sows, but more than anything, to thank the Lord up above for giving him the power of his grandma's love. Yes, you've given me more than you'll ever know. You've given me the power of the love your eyes gold.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.